अगर आ गए क्या?
महावीर जी 6 बजे आएंगे।
उनका फोन आया था अभी शाम को 3 बजे के आसपास में।
Okay, the recording has started. Now we can start the program as and how the chair didn't speak.
Yeah.
Chair, up to you.
Yeah. Should I start the proceeding?
कर लीजिए सर। आपका बैक कैमरा चालू है।
Yes.
आपका बैक कैमरा चालू है सर। आपका बैक कैमरा चालू है।
Yes. Okay. मेरा बैक कैमरा चालू है। All right now.
Yes. Sir.
Welcome, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Very good evening to all of you. On behalf of VIP Road Chartered Accountant Association, I welcome all the participants, and we are happy that we have a great speaker with us to deliberate on a very current topic. We have the opportunity to welcome Ms. Rachna Bhushari, Vice President, National Stock Exchange. We shall have another speaker who shall be joining later, Mr. Mahavir Lunawat, MD, Penthamath Group, later on the session. And I welcome Ms. Rachna Bhushari on behalf of VIP Road Chartered Accountant Association. We shall be hearing the topics, the contemporary topic, that is the alternate source of funding. This topic appears to be very interesting to me. I hope we will enjoy this session. Now, for formal introduction, I hand over the proceedings to CA Vishnu Kumar Tulsian, who is the chairman of the webinar committee. Vishnu, over to you.
Thank you, President sir. Good evening, my dear friends, guests and my professional colleagues. I, Vishnu Kumar Tulsian, Vice President and Webinar Chairman, welcome all of you on behalf of VIP Road Chartered Accounting Studies Circles, AIRC. The idea behind organizing this webinar has been with the following premises. Recently, NSE has been ranked as the world's second largest market in case market rates. NSE is taking many initiatives for listing of a small and medium enterprises, that is SME, on the boards. Recently, I just quote one of the quote of the Union Minister of MSME, Nitin Gadkari, which he said recently that increase MSME contribution to India's GDP over 50% from the current 29%, and that for the Indian economy to scale $5 trillion economy, the cooperation of the MSME sector will be crucial. The contribution of MSME sector will be crucial. Exports contribution, which currently stands 50% from this sector, will be increased to 75%. With employment generation will extend to 15 crore people from the MSME sectors. Friends, these two quotations signals that how opportunities lying with the MSMEs, and NSE is taking very good initiatives to bring the MSME sector to the boards. Hence, for this thing in behind the mind, we have invited Rachna ji to share their experiences and what the NSE has taken different initiatives for the MSME, and how we professionals can take the benefit of these new ideas, new thought, new initiative of MSME, so that we can contribute to the Indian economy also as a professionals. And side by side, my friend Mahavir Lunawat, who will join a little bit later, who will he's a SEBI registered merchant banker and who has vast experience in SEBI regulations and IPO and many more things in the NSE. So he will certainly he will contribute a lot of things in the future. And both the eminent speakers will deal in details and deal with many opportunities which the professionals can avail with these government announcements and the visions. Last but not the least, our past president Anil Saraogi ji, who has been very important pillar for the VIP CA Association, and whenever very supportive, whenever we ask his support, unconditionally he comes forward very enthusiastically. So sir, I also welcome you to this webinar.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
As a mentor. And now I hand over these proceedings to Anil Bhaiya to take ahead and make us available to the speakers and to the audience. Thank you, Bhaiya. Thank you and welcome all of you.
Good evening to all of you, especially the London speaker Rachna ji and Mahavir Lunawat ji, जो हमें कुछ ही मिनटों में ज्वाइन कर लेंगे. to this webinar on alternate sources of funding. मैं आगे बढ़ने से पहले अपने एसोसिएशन के बारे में कुछ बातें आपसे शेयर करना चाहूँगा। हमारी एसोसिएशन करीबन 20 साल पुरानी होने को चली है और इसमें अराउंड 750 मेंबर्स आज के दिन में हो चुके हैं। हमने अपने अल्मा मैटर ICAI को एक पास्ट प्रेसिडेंट भी दिया है। आज के दिन में इस वर्ल्ड में, माने ईस्टर्न पार्ट ऑफ इंडिया में, अगर आप किसी को भी विपकाप के बारे में पूछेंगे तो सब गर्व के साथ में ये कहेंगे, हाँ ये एसोसिएशन है जो काम करती है। आज की जो टॉपिक है alternate sources of funding is very apt in this hour of pandemic when normal sources of finances are not available to the corporate world who need funds to run their businesses. इस विषय में कुछ कहने से पहले मैं आपसे ये बात शेयर करना चाहूंगा कि सरकार बहुत कुछ बोलती है कि हम ये करेंगे, हम वो करेंगे, हम MSME के लिए ये करेंगे, लेकिन जब आप उनसे फंडिंग के लिए जाते हो तो आपको कुछ नहीं मिलता। तब आपको अपने लिए ही फंड को जुगाड़ करना पड़ता है और इस विषय में हमारे पास में और कोई चारा नहीं रहता है कि हम अपने पास में ऑल्टरनेट सोर्स ऑफ फंडिंग का जुगाड़ करें। और इसी विषय में हमसे बात करने के लिए हमारे पास स्पीकर है मिस रचना जी और महावीर लुनावत जी। अब मैं राहुल से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि हमारे जो भी स्पीकर हैं दोनों स्पीकर के बारे में फॉर्मल इंट्रोडक्शन दें। राहुल।
Thank you, Bhaiya. I will introduce Rachna ji first. I will introduce Mahavir ji as and when he joins us and when he starts his session. Ma'am, we are very glad to have you with us. I have already seen your profile. I'll read it out to the audience, and it really gives me immense pleasure and pride to introduce a personality like you. Rachna ji is Vice President for National Stock Exchange of India. She is responsible for all India business development initiatives of NSE for listing of SMEs on the browsers. She is a postgraduate in financial management and commerce and is also a law graduate with nearly 20 years of experience with NSE. In her earlier roles at NSE, she has handled functions like listing, investigation, member supervision, and clearing corporation operations. She is also the Vice President of the World Federation of Exchanges, SME Working Group. Ma'am, like I said, glad to have you amongst us, and I look forward to hearing from you now. I would also like to take this opportunity to quickly thank Mr. Dipen from NSE and Mr. Sunil Goenka for helping us organize today's seminar. Thank you. Over to you, Anil Bhaiya. Anil Bhaiya, you're muted. Please unmute yourself.
Rahul.
Yes, Bhaiya, we can hear you now. Please go ahead. Anil Bhaiya, please go ahead.
मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि क्वेश्चन आंसर का जो भी है ना सेशन वो एकदम लास्ट में कर लेना. लेट द स्पीकर स्पीक अप.
Yes. In case if anyone has got questions, please type it in the chat box. And for our audiences who are watching us live on Facebook, please leave your questions in the comment section and we will take it up with the speaker as and when the question and answer session begins. Go ahead.
Now we request Rachna ji to start her deliberations.
I think she dropped out. Just give me one minute. Rachna ji has dropped out for, I think. Dipen ji, can you please quickly check with her?
Yeah, I'll just check with this.
In the meantime, President sir, if you can talk about the importance of SME listing, since you are working in a listed company, so why don't you share your experience with us?
I have really no idea about SME listing, but of course, the listing company, of course, it has a lot of benefits, and the operations are very transparent. You all must be knowing that the Ind AS accounting system is already applicable for all the listing companies and all the associate concerns of the listed company with effect from accounting year 2017-18 itself. Secondly, you have to submit your account within 45 days.
I think Ratna ji has joined.
Yeah, so now she has joined, then let her now start it. Ratna ji, are you there?
She's joining, Bhaiya. In the meantime, you can continue. Thoda sa, it takes 2 minutes to join.
And the annual accounts, the audited account is to be given within 60 days. 30th May was the last date. Now they extended the date till 30th June, and today they have made another extension till 31st of July. That means the listed companies are, under the radar of the public. Your accounts are always there on the Bombay Stock Exchange. You have to give the timely and all the compliances of the listing agreements. That is very important. That if there is any change in the shareholding pattern, you have to give the immediate Bombay Stock Exchange. Has Rachna ji joined?
Yes, Rachna ji has joined. Rachna ji, please start your
Rachna ji,
deliberation.
I now request you to kindly start your deliberations. We are all waiting for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, some technical glitch at the
No,
last
no
moment
issue,
and
no
I had
issue, I
to
know.
join again. Sorry for
Yes.
the small interruption. Good evening to each one of you attending this session, and thank you so much from the VIP Road chapter for having NSE as one of the lead speakers in this important session of funding for SMEs. This reiterates the fact and the belief that SMEs are the most important thread in the fabric of the Indian economy, and there's no two ways about it. So it's very important for us to understand the significance of SMEs and why it is important. Have to say that SMEs of Indian economy have been the safeguard against the various shocks and adversities that Indian economy has faced over a period of time. And they have emerged continuously as a vibrant and a dynamic center over a few decades. Having said that, there are various challenges that the SMEs face from time to time. And the constant challenge that they have is garnering funds, garnering money to run their business operations and to fund their growth plans and expansion plans. In spite of the important economic role that they have in this country, their impediments to raising funds has been humongous. So what happens is, traditionally, if you look at, SMEs were using the debt funding mechanism. So they would approach the banks for the debt funding and they would be able to support their business funding activities. However, this also started becoming an impediment over a period of time because of collaterals, high cost of credit, timely credit availability. So all these reasons started becoming an issue with respect to raising funds by the SMEs. So considering all these factors, the Prime Minister's task force in 2010 was
Vishnu, are you able to listen to Rachna ji? Is she dropping out? Or is it
I
just
think,
me?
yeah, she's just dropping out. Even I also cannot hear.
We can't hear this side.
I think ma'am is here, back again.
I think there's some problem.
Yeah,
This
Rachna,
one.
now
Yeah.
We lost you there for some time.
So basically, SEBI. Am I?
Yes, ma'am. We can hear you. We can
Yeah,
see
yeah.
you. We can hear. Maybe if you want, you can turn off your video if you think if the
Sure.
if
I'll do
that
that.
will.
Yeah. Yeah. So having said that, the SEBI started their work on the SME exchange and put up a simplified framework so that more and more corporates get attracted towards this kind of a platform for fundraising. So in 2012, the framework was put in place, and that is a year where both the exchanges started their SME platform. And we also had NSE and BSE listing their first companies in the same year itself. So in 2012, we had the first company getting listed. And today, while I talk to you, we have more than 200 companies that have got listed on this platform. And more than 3,200 crores of funds have been raised by these SME companies. So, going by this, that yes, there is a platform available and the framework has been simplified. What we have come across is that there are a lot of apprehensions that are surrounding this platform and a lot of myths that we need to actually talk to individual stakeholder and ensure them that, yes, these are the hurdles which can be overcome and they are not a showstopper for tapping this funding mechanisms. So if you look at, the framework that has been defined by SEBI has put up very minimal eligibility criteria. So SEBI kept it very simple and they said that any company with a paid up capital of less than 25 crores is eligible to list themselves onto the SME platform. And NSE, for its platform Emerge, listed down several additional criteria for the companies to list on the stock exchange. So we said that with the SEBI criteria of paid up capital, it's also important that the company has some track record of being in existence, and they should also have been a profitable entity because we are talking about getting public funding at this stage. So in order to ensure that there is a lucrative investing opportunity for the investors, we defined the criteria of 3 years of track record of the company, and out of the 3 years, 2 years of profitability at the cash accruals level. We understand at NSE, this thought process was already clear that most of these companies would have had a capital expenditure and they will have a depreciation outflow. Hence, the profitability criteria was pegged at cash accruals level and not at the net profit level. And for the 3-year track record also, we were cognizant of the fact that most of the SME companies, by their existence or by the virtue of their entity status, they would not be private limited companies or public limited companies. They would be existing in various forms of sole proprietorship or partnership firms. So what we said is that the 3-year track record will not be applicable only for a company, even if it's a sole proprietary firm and the promoter or the proprietor has been into the same line of business for last 3 years, the benefit of track record would be given to him. So even with this criteria, what happens is that even a newly incorporated company with the track record of the promoter being in the same line of business gets eligible to list onto the stock exchange. So all these factors were accounted for, and the criteria, eligibility criteria, was defined for SME companies. And with the simplified framework, with the easier entry norms, we observed that a lot of companies were getting interested onto this platform, and the investors also were looking at it as a very good investing tool and a different alternate asset class for them to invest in early growing companies. So all these positive factors contributed to more than 500 companies across exchanges being listed and more than 6,000 or 7,000 crores of capital being raised on this platform. So overall, with this framework and with this eligibility criteria, we could see that the promoters were getting interested towards this platform. But what we also saw was that there were a lot of misconceptions that were surrounding this platform. The first that we came across was that most of the promoters felt that by listing themselves onto the stock exchange, they were in a position to lose control of their company. They would lose control of their company, and because of this, they would be liable, or they would be, they would expose themselves to an acquisition kind of a scenario. Or the second feeling that most of the entrepreneurs expressed to us was that, coming under public scrutiny and disclosing information would lead to some confidential information being taken advantage by the competitors, and because of which their business may suffer into some kind of a threat or a loss. So all these factors and compliances, onerous compliances, that was the third factor which was inhibiting the promoters from exploring this kind of a platform or alternate funding mechanisms. So we at NSE decided that, this is something that we will have to walk through with the promoter and to walk through with the intermediaries that are involved with this promoter group, and explain to them that how this apprehensions that surround them are not the ones that should be the showstoppers for them to move ahead with this listing plan or with the public offering plan. So as a way forward to it, we decided that we would also engage with the chartered accountants, who play a crucial role in directing this entrepreneurs, in advising and guiding these entrepreneurs about what should be the growth plan, how they can charter this growth plan, and what would be the best alternate mechanisms for them to tap this alternate funding mechanisms. So that is when we started talking to the chartered accountants, to the company secretaries as well, to the various other intermediaries, and we started holding sessions with the ICAI chapters, with the ICSI chapters, to engage them, to understand what is their requirement, and what would motivate a promoter, and what would motivate these intermediaries and these important ecosystem partners to actually come forward for this platform. And while the whole journey from 2012 to 2019 has been, wherein we have spoken to multiple entrepreneurs, have actually tied up with various associations, and we have held number of sessions along with the chartered accountants, along with the company secretaries, to create awareness of this platform. We've been able to see a lot of interest garnered between the entrepreneurs and these intermediaries who are important to this whole cycle of public offering. So having said that, most important thing that it is important that while I talk here is that the COVID pandemic, it has actually put all of us into a thought process. It has actually made us think about the way we do our business, and it has also established a fact that what was normal yesterday is not going to be the normal tomorrow. So we are we're going to be walking onto a new normal. So this is the time when businesses, entrepreneurs have taken a seat to reconfigure their business strategies. They have how their product mix should be, what should be their capital structure like. So these are the important things that have actually COVID has made the entrepreneurs to think about and charter their further plans accordingly. And at this point of time, today, while I talk to you, though fundraising through the IPO mechanism may not be the immediate solution to the entrepreneurs who are looking for fundraising, but the awareness session at this time is an important session, because from here it is the promoter who's going to be actually being able to charter his roadmap as to if he has to get into alternate funding mechanisms through this platform, what is that he has to do today? What are the internal controls and processes that he will need to put in place so that he's able to actually tap this mechanism in the years to come? What is the organization structure that needs to be in place so that he is able to effectively capitalize on this avenues that are available? So, this platform, though the solution may not be an outright immediate solution, because an IPO process is not a 15-day or a 2 or a 1 month kind of a job. It takes at least 3 to 6 months for the documents to get prepared and for a company to get listed, for us to create investor awareness sessions, to get an investor interest into this whole session, into this whole 1-day job, So it's a process, it's a journey. And I would say that today this session is an important milestone towards this journey, so that, while entrepreneurs, while the practicing chartered accountants are gearing up about what is that next they should do to take their businesses in the right frame of growth path. Yes, this is also there which they should concentrate on and formulate a plan and devise a strategy so that they're able to tap these funding mechanisms. I would also want to at this stage inform about various benefits that we have seen the entrepreneurs take out of this entire process of an IPO and actually the IPO proceeds. So, what we have spoken to our entrepreneurs, the surprising part is that the journey of an IPO, that is right from the day that the promoter decides to give its mandate to a merchant banker, the journey itself is a very cleansing process for an entrepreneur, because, his books are scrutinized for last 5 years. It's restated in a particular format. Every documentation is being scrutinized, is being taken care of, is being seen whether it is there or not there. Every approval is being scrutinized. So, if there has been any lapse that has happened over a period of time, this process of an IPO actually takes care of, putting all that in place and ensuring that by the time the company is an IPO ready company, they have all their documentations in place, they have all their approvals in place. What is surprising is that so many people, so many entrepreneurs informed us that they were not even aware that, some of their approvals had lapsed over a period of time, or, they were doing something which they didn't have a patent on, or they never applied for a trademark onto the brand that they have for. So, this process actually throws a lot of light on various gaps that are existing in the current way the promoter does his business, and fills and cleanses that process totally, and they come up with a cleaner process work and I would say a great track record in their book, in the hygiene factors of book maintenance and everything else. So it's not only that IPO gives them the fund that is needed for their working capital requirements or for their expansion plans, but the process of IPO also helps them throw light on various things that they rectify over a period of time. So the tangible benefits, or I would say post-listing, that I have seen, and we are actually able to, the promoters are able to relate to this kind of benefits that I'll be shortly talking about this. One is that access to funds and opportunities for other funding other fundraising opportunities. So one is that they're able to gain funds and actually, start work on their expansion plans, growth plans, or actually to tide over their working capital shortfalls. So that's the immediate advantage that they get out of an IPO. What we have seen is that this fundraising through an equity or the IPO mechanism also helps the promoter have better banking terms and negotiate on the rate of interest with the bank. So most of the banks and most of the entrepreneurs have told us this, that they have a separate interest charge for a listed entity, and they have a separate rate of interest for an unlisted entity. So even a small bips point out there, a difference of a bips point to a listed entity gives advantage to the issuer, to the company, and they automatically have a better bottom line because of the saving of the interest cost. So that's an important benefit that most of the entrepreneurs who are listed on NSE have vouched for and have benefited out of it. Other important thing about an SME listing that is applicable is that the company is getting into visibility mode. Everybody is now knowing, or the NSE terminals flash information about the company. The information is available on the website of NSE, and a lot of investors are looking at this company because they would be interested towards either the promoters, or they would be interested in the industry that this company is operating in. So, or they're looking at a small company with high growth potential. So the visibility of the company multifolds, or it grows multifold when it's a listed entity. So that's an important advantage that entrepreneurs would be able to take advantage by listing themselves on the NSE Emerge platform. The other important thing is that the credibility of the company enhances significantly at a higher stage once it's a listed entity. Because listing presupposes basic corporate governance norms. It also ensures that yes, there is a scrutiny that has happened at the regulator level of the company, and hence, it increases confidence in the company of the stakeholders who are dealing with this company. So the credibility of the company goes notches higher once it's a listed entity. Important advantage to the investing community is that they are able to look at it as an alternate investing class, participate in a growth story at a very, very early stage in the life cycle of a company. In case of a VC funded company or a private equity funded company, this platform is a great exit opportunity. So even in our current 200 companies that are listed on this platform, we have seen that several companies who were backed by VC or a PE, the existing investors have taken an exit opportunity using this platform, and a new set of investors have joined this family of investing into this company. So it's a great opportunity even to provide an exit opportunity to the existing investors. Mergers and acquisitions, we talk about consolidations, we talk about the way being that mergers and acquisitions are people in similar lines of businesses consolidate their businesses. So again, always a no cash deal offer. So you just have to swap your shares and you can have a great, wonderful opportunity for mergers and acquisitions without actually having a cash outflow. So that's a beautiful advantage that a listed entity enjoys. From a promoter perspective, the most important thing is that they are able to unlock the valuation of the shares. They are able to use the shares as an opportunity to fund their further growth, because once you have a valuation attached to your shares and your market capitalization is at a particular number or something like that, then you are able to actually go pledge your shares as collaterals and raise further capital to use into your business. So again, it's a great opportunity to further your financing accesses, and also provides great valuation opportunities, unlocking the valuation of the promoters. Most of our promoters, they've also told us that a piece of paper, which is like a share certificate for them, which is kept in their locker, absolutely had no value till the date was listed. And after listing, they realized that, they could use so much out of it, and they could actually, start encashing the benefits of their goodwill, the reputation that they've created in the markets through this journey of listing. So it's basically a wealth creation path that begins from listing. So it's not only the promoters who enjoy the wealth creation journey, it's also the investors who are joining in with the company who are able to take part in this wealth creation journey that is started by the promoter through the IPO offering. So, multiple benefits. The most important in the current scenario is that listed entities are able to give ESOPs to their employees to retain higher talent into the company, which is again, for an SME to retain talent, to hire a high talent also becomes a challenge. But if it's a listed SME who's able to offer ESOPs to its employees, actually the game changes, and you are able to actually have a high talent, not only joining you, but also retaining you because of this wonderful facility of ESOPs being offered, and which do have an exit opportunity through the listed market space. So that's very, very important. Again, important feature, of an SME company is on this platform, listing on this platform, is that it also provides them with the opportunity to migrate to the main board. So what we've seen is today 33 companies of NSE. Today, in fact, one company got migrated on the main board. So 34 companies of NSE have got migrated to the main board of NSE. So that's again a great achievement for the promoters, because they've joined on the smaller platform. They listed themselves on the SME platform of NSE. After being 2 years on this platform, they decided to, opt for the migration facility that's available, and today they are trading on the main board of the stock exchange. So this not only provides the entrepreneur a time duration to adapt himself to the capital markets, but it also allows him to actually start the wealth creation plan on a wealth creation path on a smaller platform, and actual unlocking of the valuation happens when the company migrates to the main board. And the entire investor class is now looking at this kind of a company who has migrated, and they are ready to invest in this kind of a growing company. So I can tell you, that out of our experience, we've seen that listing provides numerous benefits to the listed to the companies, and the myths that surround it about loss of control. I have not, in my 20 years of capital market journey, seen a single creeping acquisition kind of a scenario in India. So I think we have a great framework in place which takes care of this kind of hostile to be in we have strong regulatory framework put in place. The second is about loss of fear of control. See, the dilution requirement today is stipulated at 25%. So while going public, the minimum dilution has to be only 25%. So 75% is still with the promoter and the promoter group. That in no way threatens loss of control of your company. That is, it again goes back to the fact that the company decision making is with you. The company's day-to-day operations are going to be run by you, and nobody interferes in your day-to-day affairs. Nobody questions your decision making. Only thing is that it lays down a path for you to work in a disciplined manner, because by being a listed entity, you are now accountable to an investor who has invested his money and is looking forward to the growth of this company, so that he is able to actually have the wealth creation that he envisaged at the time of listing, at the time of investing in such a growing company. So it in no way actually takes away your, I would say, your autonomy to function your business. It only puts in a great organization structure, an independent board structure, which guides you in the right manner. You may be twice, conscious about what decisions you are taking, because now you are a listed entity. So that's great. You take a very informed, conscious decision. So like I said, it just gives you a disciplined path to run your businesses. It doesn't take away your control on your businesses. About the myth of, having loss of or having confidential information to be shared or to be coming under public scrutiny, again, that's not the fact, because what you have to disclose is only your financials, your important outcome of board meetings, and your shareholding patterns and everything else. You don't have to disclose your trade secrets. You don't have to disclose your clientele, that this is what I'm getting from which. You don't have to. So it's again not that you are putting up information which is confidential to you on the NSE website. It's never the requirement. What is required is few structured disclosures on a timely basis. So again, that doesn't stand true that a loss of confidential information to the outsiders. So we try and engage with the entrepreneurs. We try and engage with the chartered accountants, because they are the ones who are actually able to talk to the promoters. They understand the thought process of the promoter, and they're able to actually walk this path with the promoter to explain to them how this process benefits them into this kind of fundraising avenues that have been charted out. And it's a great opportunity even for these for the chartered accountants and for the consultants, because they get associated with the listed entity. They learn, they experience the journey of an IPO, and they are more equipped to handle such cases in future and offer various other kind of services to their other clientele as well. So it's a win-win situation for the entrepreneurs as well as for the stakeholders who are associated with this kind of an IPO going company or a public offering company. What is important today is for the entrepreneurs or for the promoters to realize is that while they decide that yes, this is a platform that I can look up to. My company is eligible to. What should I do to prepare myself to tap this funding mechanisms? So it's very important that they crystallize a plan about what is the fund that they require for, what do they require this fund, how are they going to spend this fund for. It's also important for these people to understand that how am I going to be. Just a minute, sorry. It's very important to see, engage with the right kind of intermediary who's going to be able to, walk this path with them and valuations and the right kind of investing community to invest into their shares at the time of public offering. So it's a careful, or I would say it's a very planned approach that the entrepreneurs would have to think about before they decide to walk this path of public offering. Initially, I did mention about that, the regulator put in a very simplified framework for SMEs to list. And I just thought I'll touch upon, that there are various dispensations that have been given to the SME companies that are listed on this platform. So like the main board where, quarterly disclosures are mandatory. What is important on the SME platform is that, you make only half-yearly disclosures. It's not a mandatory requirement to have quarterly disclosures. So that again gives a lot of disclosure discipline that is being put in place by the regulatory bodies. It also allows them to equip their teams to get into this groove of regulatory disclosures on a timely basis. So again, it's not that you have to be all the time on a I would say on the radar that quarter is approaching and I need to finish all these things. So there is a space. You can give 6 monthly results, declare your 6 monthly results. The other important leeway that the regulator has given is that funding is required by an SME company, and it is not just funding, it is timely funding. So in such a case, what happens is that the entrepreneur or the GRHP is filed only with exchange, and observations are given and approval is given only by the exchange. SEBI is not the approving authority in case of an SME IPO. So this ensures that your process is done on a timely manner and you're able to list your company at a very fast pace. So from my experience, I have seen a company listed as short as 100 days from the date the company decided to list themselves on this platform. So it's not a time-consuming process. It doesn't have onerous compliance disclosures. The cost is comparatively much lower to a main board listing. So there are various advantages again that a promoter enjoys by listing themselves on this small and medium enterprise platform. And how much time do I have more?
Ma'am, you can continue. We have got 15-20 minutes, at least for you. So you can continue.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yeah. So we at NSE have always understood that we should be we should be able to actually be the I think we should be the preferred partner for corporates to raise their capital. And we also understand with the changing times as to what is the need of the SME corporates. And we realized that the startup fraternity, was not able to tap funds through the SME emerged platform mechanism simply because of the profitability criteria that was put in place by NSE. So we did review our SME eligibility criteria, and we said that we must define a separate eligibility criteria for a technology startup. So we also reviewed the criteria, and we let technology startup company have a track record that they will not have profitability or account of the business that they have to do initially to get into that more public money at the stage of shareholding. So we again reviewed the criteria and we said that this is what a technology startup eligibility criteria will be, and it need not necessarily be a profitable venture, which we realize most startups at early stages in their life are not. So again, we are very sensitive to the fact that, SMEs need different kind of funding at different kind of, at various point of time. And we need to keep upgrading ourselves on that matter. So also NSE along with SEBI has come up with RXIL, that's the Receivables Exchange of India. And we have a TREADS platform, which, allows the SMEs to discount their bill get into the factoring process and have a early cash flow requirements. So time and again, we have the mechanism that is available to the SME operations as smoothly as possible within the time frame that is being given to them. So, we at NSE are committed to ensure that, we become the preferred partners for the corporates to raise their funds, and also for the investors to have confidence into the financial markets. So in order to ensure that, and in order to instill investor confidence into this segment, NSE is very, very stringent in their scrutiny of the DRHP. I have heard a lot of entrepreneurs, even give us this feedback that, what a detailed study has been done and what kind of queries have been raised. Yes, but yeah, that's something that we repeatedly will do. And we absolutely, there's no leeways by the exchange compliance team on that matter, where a detailed scrutiny of the DRHP is done. A promoter's background is studied thoroughly. There is a process walkthrough that is done with the promoter and his team. A personal site visit by the NSE compliance team would be done to ensure that, the business is in the similar fashion that is being depicted in the DRHP business model. So all those checks and balances are there to ensure that, we have the right kind of companies on board, and we have the investor confidence being retained in the financial markets, and we are able to build the credibility of this platform. So I think that's the most important thing, because once we are able to have an investor confidence and build credibility of the platform, then the companies automatically will be, interested and attracted towards this kind of an fundraising avenue, and the investors will provide the right liquidity by investing and having confidence in this kind of companies that are getting listed on this platform. So in our attempt to, further this investment platform or to further this fundraising platform, we've been engaging with various associations, industry bodies, with state governments, with central government, to see what can be done to help SMEs be more aware of this platform and actually tap this platform for their fundraising mechanisms. So we do a lot of awareness sessions, and during this lockdown period also I've done more than 30 sessions, which gives me the confidence that every association, industry body, every institute is very keen to work hand in hand with the SME entrepreneurs and help them tide over this difficult time in whatever manner they can. So it's a very encouraging response that I've got in the last 3 months of COVID, where we've been continuously doing webinars to ensure that people are aware that they have funding mechanisms, and how they can gear up to tap this platform or funds through this platform. So that's been very, very encouraging to us, and I must applaud the ICAI and various other industry associations for keeping that vibrant feeling alive, that yes, there are various things that can be done, and it's not the end that's we're looking at. It's just that we have to tide over these difficult times, and plan how to get over these difficult times. Another important thing which I would just conclude with is that just for the entrepreneurs and for the consultants who are being very closely working with these entrepreneurs, at this time when our businesses have been questioned, our strategies have been requested, kindly take a seat back, look at the way we've been doing businesses. Is there a need to restructure the way we've been doing? How can I better the business opportunities? How can I actually use this as an opportunity to grow my business? Because I think India has huge opportunities once it comes out of the lockdown. A lot of opportunities are waiting for us, and SME is the right agile and a flexible sector that actually, laps up the opportunities in no time. So it's a right opportunity for the entrepreneurs to strategize, to plan, to see what funding requirements are required at what stage, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, what is my funding plans, how do I prepare myself, and if I have to go the IPO mechanism, what is that I should be doing, who I should be getting on board, who I should partner with. So I think it's an important time for us to rethink, re-strategize our businesses and look at various other alternates that are available in the markets, and actually, cash the opportunities that are going to be thrown up at us at post the lockdown, because I think India is just waiting for that kind of a time to open up, and there are opportunities galore for each one of us out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. Anil भैया,
महावीर जी ने ज्वाइन कर लिया क्या?
अभी तक नहीं किया, उनको 5 minutes और लगेगा. In the meantime, if the audience has got any questions, please go ahead and ask, ma'am. You can either raise your hand and we will unmute you from here, or you can type it in the chat.
Can I have the question, ma'am?
Yes, please go ahead, sir.
Ma'am. Hello.
Yes.
Ma'am. Just it is more question from my client. They are listed in the Calcutta Stock Exchange with 5 crores of paid up capital.
Okay.
Can they avail the benefit of NSE emerge?
See, NSE emerge, the listing can happen through the initial public offering mechanism only. There's nothing called as a direct listing that happens on the NSE emerge platform. So if it's already a listed entity, that means they would have raised funds through a mechanism while they were listed on the Calcutta Stock Exchange.
Yeah.
So the IPO is not there anymore. So because of that, they will not be able to come and do direct listing on NSE. I think we have a dissemination board facility. I think they'll have to look at that kind of a board to see how to get into dissemination board and see how they can get into the listing framework within that. But NSE emerge will not be the right kind of a platform, because on this platform only a company coming through an IPO can get listed.
Okay. Any MSME benefit they can avail from the NSE through the CSE?
Sorry, I didn't get your question. Sorry.
SME, they can take any benefit of MSME listing in NSE?
No, they will
because they are
not.
CSE listed?
No, they will not be.
Not like it. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Deepak Kumar Patwari ji has raised his hand. I think he has a question, so I'm going to unmute him so that he can ask your question to Rachna ji. Go ahead, Deepak ji, please ask your question. I have unmuted you. Deepak ji, just 1 minute. Deepak ji, we are unable to unmute you for some technical issues. Can you go ahead and... Oh yes, Deepak ji, now we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
I am hearing from a lot of fund houses and people, professional leaders, that there are going to be a lot of opportunities in the coming months to in India. But can you specify some good opportunities so the professional like us, we can start preparing from now so that we can break the ice when it is when it's needed. We are first to break the ice. Can you specify some opportunities?
And as a country, India is likely to get various opportunities in various sectors, and there's no undoubtedly, because there are a lot of people who are talking about moving out of establishing a shop in India, or putting up their offices in India. So I think opportunities out there are going to be multiple in various sectors, and I wouldn't want to get into individual sector to say which opportunity in which sector is going to be very opening up and lucrative enough. But for the capital markets, I would say that yes, we've heard Gadkari ji make various announcements about being, encouraging good companies, good SMEs to list themselves on the stock exchange. And they've also declared a corpus of 10,000 crores of funds which will invest in the equity of SME companies. So I think that's a great opportunity for SME companies to tap that kind of a fund. Once we have a clear guidelines, we know what the actual plan process is of the government. But I think that is going to be a great opportunity in the months to come forward, and we're waiting for clear instructions and guidelines from the government on that matter.
Can I carry on with this, my question?
Sure, Deepakji, if you have. But can you please keep it small, because we are joined by Mahavir Lunawat ji. So we would like.
This is what I'm hearing. There are going to be opportunities. Can you specify 2 or 3 opportunities? Because what the government is declaring is that they are declaring a lot of things, which is only remaining on paper. Nothing is coming in at the ground level. So can you specify? Say you specify 3 opportunities. Specific 3 opportunities for the professional like us. What we should do? Specify 3 opportunities. There are various opportunities. Specify 3 opportunities.
Okay, ma'am, just one minute. Mahavir ji, sorry, just one minute. Mahavir ji, would you like to take this question later on? Maybe if you want. We can have both
the
speakers.
question is very simple. So we all are, part of the same ecosystem. All are professional friends. Opportunity, as Rachna ji has rightly said, is galore. We have more than 60 million SME units in India, which is one of the highest globally, and sectoral spread is also quite wide.
Yes. And I think you are going to cover all this in your deliberation today. So
yeah,
why don't we start off with your session, and Deepakji, hopefully that will answer a lot of your queries.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Deepakji, if you have, yes, ma'am, please.
Rahulji, I saw one question in the chat box where they wanted me to repeat the.
Ma'am, we will come to it a little later. I think we are being a little pushed to time. Yes.
Sure.
If required, we'll come to it later.
Yeah.
Anil Bhaiya, yes, please.
Rahul.
Yes.
Ask Vishnu to formally introduce the guest speaker, Mahavir ji Lunawat.
Yes, Vishnu ji, please go ahead.
Just
should I read out Mahavir ji's profile?
Yeah. Carry on, Rahul, carry on.
Yes. Welcome, Mahavir ji, to our platform of Vipka. I am very happy to have you here. I would like to read out your brief profile for the benefit of our audiences. So Mahavir ji is the group founder and managing director of Pantomath Advisory Services Group, SEBI registered merchant bankers and stockbrokers. He had the working exposure of working with leading organizations like Reliance Industries, ITC Limited, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and he has also helped successful startups of SEBI registered merchant banking ventures as Sarathi Capital Advisors. He has vast exposure in security law and company markets, including MSME listing, IPO and M&A, takeovers, buybacks, rights issue, stock exchanges, SBI related activities. Basically, it covers all of, he has done everything, anything and everything as far as listings and browser related activities are concerned. So he has got tremendous level of experience and knowledge with him. He is also a CFA from ICFI and a CFA from AIMR USA. Level 2. He is a fellow company secretary gold medalist and was awarded the ICSI Presidential Gold Medal and is a law graduate. So we are very glad that you are able to spare some time and share your knowledge with us today for the benefit of our members. Thank you very much, sir. And we look forward to a wonderful celebration.
Thank you, Rahulji. And I think one quick introduction is I also belong to Kolkata.
Yes, sir. And we know that you are very good friends with our chairman, Vishnu Tulsian ji.
We used to share same room. Of course, Vishnuji is my senior, so used to bother him a lot when I used to study. And of course, I did my graduation from St. Javiers College, so feeling quite nostalgic about meeting all of you, colleagues, and happy to be with you. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thank you, sir. It is absolutely our pleasure.
Mahavirji,
Yeah.
I just have one book, if you can remember, we have published in 2020.
Yes, definitely.
Now, welcome to this BIP Association for your experiences.
Thank you.
Please come.
Please start your deliberation, sir.
So how much time? I think 15-20 minutes of this slide, and then
sir, it's up to you. It's up to you, sir. We are prepared to extend this session to as much as 7:30.
No, so we'll keep it quite, crisp, and then happy to maybe have more enhanced interactions.
Just one small request, as Deepak ji has pointed out, and that is where most of our interest lies, is please highlight how we professionals can benefit from the current opportunities which are there in staring algorithm at us.
Sure. So any business will have, let's say, various stages of life cycle points, and I think earlier perhaps there were limited opportunities for a company in a emerging or startup phase, but fortunately now we have regulatory advancements and platforms like emerge platform or SME platform or even startup platforms. So perhaps a decade back, nobody could have thought of raising public equity in startup phase or in MSME space. And it was only for, mid-size and large companies which probably could have thought of going public and raising capital from public. But fortunately today we have various alternatives. So we have main board, we have alternate capital market platforms like SME platform, and there's a new platform which is IGP, Innovators Growth Platform, which has also been approved by SEBI, which is only for startups, tech startups. So there are 3 platforms at stock exchanges where one can raise capital, and one don't have to actually wait till one grows to a certain level. So that's a very good news. And at the outset, we have more than 500 companies that have got listed on SME platforms of both the exchanges. And with that, Indian alternate capital market platform has become the fastest growing platform globally in terms of number of companies that have come and got listed in a short span of, let's say, 6 years or less than 7 years. And the kind of sectors they represent is again quite phenomenal. And name any sector, whether it's engineering, IT, commodities, metals, manufacturing, software, e-commerce, technology, robotics, name every sector and we will find company listed on SME exchanges. Another quick thing to add is that there are a lot of times, perception about the quality of investors on SME platforms, and there have been a lot of discussions here. Say, all I can say from our experience of managing close to 100 IPOs on SME platforms is that if there is good business model, promising management team, there have been even mutual funds, large family offices, and even institutions like MIT US who have got invested or participated in SME stocks at all levels, in fact, pre-IPO, IPO, and even in secondary market post-IPO. So there have been a lot of investors who have participated in these companies. Secondly, on liquidity, there have been a lot of issues. So I think this is more of a long-term wealth creation platform. It's a high-risk, high-return platform. Those who have come with a little longer view to remain with the company, grow with the company. When company gets migrated onto the main board, then kind of take a view whether to continue or monetize the stake is what we recommend. Sometimes investors with short-term mindset get into SME stocks and they may not get the desired returns. And that's where I think the liquidity question always comes up. But yes, there have been even cases where large mutual funds have got exit in the SME stocks in the secondary market. So liquidity is again a relative term. So I think the role of professional, I think this whole presentation directly or indirectly talks of, role of professionals. And believe me, when we as investment bankers or as part of, let's say, extended team of stock exchanges or regulators, when we go to industrial clusters across the country, we are in fact in discussion more with professionals than the management, because these are the companies which have huge trust and faith on their professionals, whether it could be auditors, it could be internal auditors, it could be even financial consultants who may or may not be auditors. But invariably, without exception, every company will have immense amount of trust on their chartered accountant, if I have to use one word, whether auditor or otherwise. And in that context, I think our interaction with professional fraternity has been immense. Believe me, it may not be wrong even to say that many a times even the strategic decisions are being taken by professionals and management just nods. And that's the reality. And that is why this ecosystem has been able to flourish like this, unlike in many other countries globally, where perhaps management has not been able to take decisions and people have various apprehensions, various questions. But because in India we have this trusted business advisors in the form of, let's say, auditors or finance consultants, I think that has made significant contribution to this ecosystem. So very quickly, there are various options for emerging companies. I mean, you all know equally well in terms of private equity, in terms of IPOs, and also there is a lot of capital getting drawn in the form of M&A. And from our experience of last couple of months in particular, when the whole world is looking at India as a favorite investment destination, we understand that there are a lot of increased number of greenfield and brownfield projects where foreign capital is getting drawn to India in a big way. And in our view, particularly in the second half of the year, we will be witnessing lot of such transactions taking place and capital getting invested from cross-border to Indian industry. And that's where the role of professionals come. So there are clearly two sets of companies. One, when we talk to companies, one set of companies will say, abhi to lockdown hai, things are not proper, factories are partially working, labor is not available, let's meet in September or December. Another set of people, same situation, but probably handled by good professionals like you, who will say that, yes, this is the right time because we have relatively more time left with us. Let us have internal preparation done for external equity. And external equity is, I think, going to be the norm, or has already become the norm of the day, including whether companies like Reliance Industries, I mean, we all are aware this is a kind of role model for all of us, or any growing company of, let's say, turnover of maybe 50, 100 crores or more. So external equity is going to be the order of the day. And that's where I think the role of professionals come in a very big manner. And we'll come to that in terms of how professionals can play a role in drawing, equity to their client companies. So second set of people are those people who are perhaps being advised rightfully that, look, Mr. Entrepreneur, the external situation perhaps we can't change, but there is an opportunity. There are a lot of capital which is getting drawn to India, but those companies who are ready to take that capital, who is internally prepared with the plan and model, because COVID can affect each and anyone, and that has been factored by investors in any case. But post COVID, how will be the business 1 year hence, 2 year hence? If that plan is ready, perhaps those second set of entrepreneurs or companies will be the fast movers in taking that capital which is available, as part of either IPOs or let's say private transactions. So this is, I think, a slide which is very, very simple, looks like, and that's where, believe me, the most critical role of professionals come in the play. When we talk to entrepreneurs in terms of taking equity, the immediate question is that I cannot or I will not go to IPO because I will be taken over, or I will have my holdings diluted. I will be left with a lesser number of shareholding. I will have external directors sitting on my board. My confidentiality will get lost and I will have maybe increased intervention. And I'm happy with the debt. And why should I have increased compliance costs and increased compliance levels? So these are, believe me, these are the stuck points which have created many stumbling blocks. And take any sector, why Paytm is Paytm today, and there would be tens or hundreds of such business models who are probably, we don't even know the name because they could not or they have not gone for sheer funding. So other day we were in discussion with a company I shouldn't say the product, too obviously, but let's say it's in it's in garments space, and they claim that they are the second largest company in that particular product basket. The one who has taken funding, I mean, we know the name. It has become maybe a $500 million company in a very short period of time. And second largest, we may not even know the name. The only difference is the company which has become the leader has taken capital at the right point in time, and the other company probably would not have gone for capital, and they have remained completely range bound. So I think that's where a role of professionals is very, very critical, and we need to, or I mean, you as professionals must advise the management that there is not perhaps a single instance where a company has been taken over in a hostile manner. Whatever mergers or takeovers happen, these are all mutual, and these are all part of the growth journey. So please do not have any apprehension that, I mean, Indian regulations are so strong, and SEBI and exchanges have done wonderful work in terms of putting up a very thoughtful, regulatory framework. I mean, you can advise them that forget about control. If anyone wants to take even 5% of shares of a listed company, they would need to notify the whole market that they have taken 5%. And that 5% is also so well calculated that whether it is one person or a group of people or persons acting in concert, so, and it's so widely defined that any kind of connections or let's say concert is covered such that the concerned company, the target company and stakeholders are known that a particular group is interested in this company, so they can take preparatory steps. So control is a very far-fetched thing, but a very insignificant shareholding of even 5% is monitored and informed in a very transparent manner on a almost real-time basis. So those are the kind of laws, and why those laws are there, because in India we deal business as more as our life, more as an approach. It's not a commodity like in Western world where businesses are bought and sold quite often. In India, businesses are being perceived as life earning, and the regulations are also made in that context that protect not only investors' interest, but they also protect the continuity of business and management. And if that kind of confidence is lent to the company, then I think they become part of the success stories what we have seen on SME stock market or on main board. So what investors look out for? This is again very directly related to what professionals play a role. So we often say that if we have to do tax planning and let's say save taxes by reducing the profit of let's say 1 crore, perhaps company will save maybe 25 lakhs or 30 lakhs of taxes. But if we are on wealth creation model, and if we are having the right kind of balance sheet, even if we are paying 25 to 30 lakhs of tax, but valuation, even if we take 10 times of post tax earnings, the PE multiple, the valuation is 10 crores. So trade-off is not 8 or 10. Trade-off is we pay 25 to 35 lakhs of tax, or we forego 10 crore of valuation. And believe me, we have seen a lot of businesses adopting right kind of transparent reporting and account keeping or bookkeeping when they have understood this wealth creation. And you will see a lot of companies, the profits or taxes will be going up significantly because of, let's say, change in accounting policies and streamlining their balance sheet and accounting once they come for listing. And that's where I think the role of professional is very, very critical in terms of making people understand the transparency and valuation which they get if they keep their accounting practices straight. And typically you can have whichever, let's say, whatever your model of practice, you can have a module for your clients in terms of what a typical investors look for before investing. So it's not numbers but business beyond numbers, because excels can be drawn, but what's the business plan going forward for 3 years, 5 years? So you can play an active role in preparing a strategy for your client companies in terms of short term, medium term and long term, and you can advise them in a very scientific manner in terms of drawing a sustainable plan, in terms of product profile, in terms of pricing. You can also give them inputs of the peers product and pricing strategies. So for example, if let's say I'm a retail company and my MRP is, let's say, discount policies is 5%, probably we can tell them that what the other peers are doing in various product range. If it is significantly higher or significantly lower, then probably there could be some discussion which is required. Both ways may not be, let's say, sustainable. So things like that. And one thing which we have particularly liked in Indian model is that people are not aware about the potential scale of the market. And there is a lot of struggle in terms of top line versus bottom line. A lot of times people will come to us that we are 25% EBITDA company, we are 30% EBITDA company, and we want this valuation because we are most profitable balance sheet, and you raise funds for us on, let's say, Emerge platform. But the question is, when we look at the 5 years numbers, they are probably between 90 to 80 crores in all the 5 years. So how an investors will enter and, let's say, look at exit 3 to 5 years hence, assuming that is long-term investor, because last 5 years the business has grown from 90 crore to 100 crore. So yes, you have earned 25-30% margins, but what about scale? What about growth? And that's where I think a lot of professional inputs will be required, or are required, in fact, in terms of sensitizing the management about a balance between top line and bottom line. Sometimes people go only after volumes because of, let's say, some bank requirements or some other requirements of going after volumes and having maybe 1% profits. As contrast, we have fantastic numbers of EBITDA profit, but perhaps top line is not there. So either ways, I think one needs to balance that. Yes, I need to have a significant sustainable growth in top line and yet have the bottom line in place, because investors will not look any of them in a standalone basis. So sustainable margins, absolute and relative. This is a very, very good point where again a professional help is required. So we were faced with the company which say that we are earning 15% margins and we are very, very profitable. You have raised funds for a company with even lesser margins. But when we actually see if it's a logistic company, even 10% EBITDA margin could be considered as, let's say, very handsome. Compared to that, if it's a specialty chemical or an API company, probably even 15% margin could be considered very low. So we need to see the absolute levels and as well as the relative levels. That if industry norm is 20% margins, then anything below 20 is not acceptable by investors. And all those things you need to perhaps educate the management that where the money is going, where the cost is getting factored in. If industry norm is 20 and if we are at 15, what all are the areas of, let's say, cost controls or let's say cost efficiencies which can be perhaps planned, if not immediately, at least let's say over a period of 1 to 2 years. And that's again, I think that becomes the direct area of your service. Preparing a company for external equity, I think it's a huge scope, whether one goes for IPO, whether one go for pre-IPO at one first place and then go for IPO. I think it's a very constructive area where entire professional fraternity can play a huge role. And there, of course, other areas of corporate governance, corporate structure. So many of times people will have multiple entities taking care of the same product or similar product range because of maybe some subsidy structure or let's say some family ownership structure. So I mean, how an investor can put money in a company where the similar products are being sold by another sister concern at the same time. So we need to have the structure right. We need to streamline the corporate structure. We need to have the holding structure, particularly, I mean, you will agree that we come across companies where multiple levels of, entities have holdings and capital have flown from one entity to another. Less said than the better. So I think gone are the days where perhaps those structures can continue. And I think take any company of even Kolkata, either they've already structured their holdings properly or they are in process of streamlining the holdings. So that's again another area where professionals can play or rather are playing a huge role in terms of consolidating both operations and as well as the holdings. So these are again flowing from the last slide in terms of essentials of successful fundraise. So there again, I mean, all of us can play a very big role in terms of having a clear communicated vision. So it might look very mundane or very stereotype statement of communication of a vision. It's not about just having a paragraph on vision statement or mission statement. It is basically defining the whole organization where it wants to go. So currently we are working with a wellness company, and the way it has defined its vision is to kind of run as most profitable wellness company of India. And their mission is to keep India obesity free by, let's say, 2030. So when investors look at those statements of most profitable business, I mean, it's a very big statement to make that I am the most profitable company in my industry, and that speaks for a lot. And then of course there are data points required to substantiate that if this claim is being made, how factually correct is this, and if so, how sustainable is this? Today you might be most profitable. Number one, what you have done differently, and this will bring me create at least 20-25 questions emanating out of a simple statement of most profitable business. And if I have to really make India free of obesity by 2030, then perhaps I am making a very tall claim. And how I'll be able to do, how I'll be able to reach Asansol and not restrict only to Kolkata. Can I afford a clinic in Asansol? If not, then what is the plan? My plan is very simple. I'll have mobile clinic. Okay, mobile clinic. What if you're not able to go even to mobile clinic? I have virtual consultation. So a vision will also lead to your growth plan and strategy, and that's where I think the vision will be kind of defined. So it's not a statement just for the sake of it, and that's where I think professional role will be very handy, that it's a complete strategy, growth plan from medium to long run, And backed by those data points and plan, there is a vision and mission which will define company, and that when presented to investors will kind of find their attention in true sense. How critical is the business for the industry? So we raised capital for a Kolkata based company some time back recently, and that company is manufacturing machines that is patented in India, Singapore, Japan, and Korea. Imagine a company, Indian company, which has its machine patented in markets like Japan and Germany. So very rare, but yes, and that company is from Kolkata. And the machines which they manufacture produces sand out of construction debris and material wastes. So generally we feel that sand is very, available in plenty and stuff like that. But the reality is that India is huge scarcity of river sand, and India has started importing sand from neighboring countries. And of course, there are other problems of illegal mining of sand, etc., etc. And then environmental, think of Kolkata metro generating huge piles of construction wastes. So the machines which are manufactured by this company is not only converting that Kolkata metro example I'm saying, waste into sand. That sand is also claimed to be much superior than the naturally available river sand in terms of consistency, in terms of the usage. It can be, the mix can be modified depending on the usage, etc. So it's a huge environment friendly, and also it is import substitution, and the machine is made in such a way that it's very mobile, noise free, etc., etc. So it solves lot of industry problems, and it is kind of a critical business for not only environment, not only policymakers, but also to customers. And when we present such kind of business to investors, I mean, believe me, there were like investors were chasing the company, and finally we got very good valuation. The money has already come in. Very few people even know about it, and maybe it will be one of the next growth stories of Kolkata when it hits the public market down the line. So each and every business serves some purpose, and that purpose we need to call out in terms of how critical is the business to the industry, to the environment, or to the customers. Each and every business may not be, let's say, serving directly to environment. The next question could be that, and that's okay. But as a business unit, the business must and do serve some purpose. It's just that we need to define that carefully, and once that is done, I think we can safely position that before the company. Business model and plan we have discussed, professional team, marketing strategy. So these are all points which are typical, essentials of fundraise. And again, we can play a very good role in terms of sensitizing the management about the need of each of these, and also then drawing each of these in an orderly manner, which are number one, bankers like us perhaps can do exercise and present this. But you being, let's say, very close to management, and you kind of sit with them on a regular basis, you can actually ensure the implementation at a much closer level. I mean, you're the best person to do that, and if that is achieved, I think the rest all becomes very, very easy. So these are again extension of some real life cases where we have seen from private transactions, and we will come to public transactions as well. So Kolkata example I took, then we got overseas $3 billion listed company, Japanese company investing in one of our food sector company. Then again in a building construction material company, the transaction is in advanced stages, and a $5 billion New York Stock Exchange listed company is looking at investing in building construction material company. So the learnings of some of these transactions of moving with large fund houses or global conglomerates is that And again, this is very important point. These are very simple point, but sometimes those become very, very important, because when we manage entrepreneurial perspective and investor perspective, there's a vast difference of looking at things differently. So imagine this machine manufacturing company. This was very asset light, no land, no building, of course beyond the required one, I'm saying. But there are companies with huge investments in land, building. They will seek valuation of their land in building, that हमारे पास तो 500 crore का land है, 300 crore का land है, उसका कैसे value करेंगे? But when we go to investors, the perspective is completely reverse, because they are not going to invest in real estate, they are going to invest in business. So rather they say that not only we will not value the land and building, but you also take that out of the business, because we are not going to invest in those assets, because we are here to run business, we are here to value business. So as professionals, again, we must sensitize the management that if you want to invest in land or properties, you have maybe another investment entity where you can build your real estate portfolio, and don't club your unproductive, or unproductive may not be the right word, the non-revenue generating portfolio must be distinct from revenue generating assets. Product differentiation, I think we largely spoke on in the context of Kolkata companies. Product differentiation. What are the entry barriers? If let's say I'm saying that I'm most profitable company in wellness industry, tomorrow anybody can emulate and can come as attracted by margins. So what are the entry barriers in true sense? That has to be very clearly articulated and presented to investors. And whether my business model is capable enough of generating handsome margins on, let's say, a sustainable time trajectory. It's not that 1 year or 2 years, or maybe if I'm at, let's say, 200, 300, 500 crore, I'm generating 20%, but can my business generate the same kind of margins when I grow 10 times is the question which often we need to, we are faced with in every transaction. Criticality we discussed. And I think by and large, environmental sustainability. So environmental sustainability again is a very broader point. Often we get linked to direct environment impact, but environmental sustainability could be technology, could be cost efficiency, could be saving of manpower, could be saving of resources. So it's a very wide term, and that's where again we can sensitize the management in terms of the true meaning of environmental sustainability, and how our company, the client company, is fulfilling, or on what parameters it is serving the cause, is what we can highlight. And professional and technically sound team is again the deal breaker in many of the cases where people have grown to a particular level, but unless and until there's a qualified team, probably it's hard for investors to look at those businesses. So I think there were some couple of more slides on private market as well. The public market as well. So yeah, screen is visible.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll share the presentation, and that can be circulated, not a problem. So this is again a classic example, which is a representative example of how, let's say, the stock market platforms have been helping company. And this case study throws a lot of points.
Last slide is visible as of now. Nothing else.
Okay.
So thank you, slide.
Oh, sorry. Now this case study is visible?
Yes, now it is visible.
Yeah. So this is a classic, example. Again, must disclaim, I'm not recommending this stock for investments or any of those time. This is purely an academic or case study. So when we listed this company on NSE Emerge, it was a 4 crore IPO at a market capitalization of less than 20 crores, because 4.4 for 26%. So the market cap of the company was less than 20 crores. In 2 years time, the market cap of the company is more than 250 crores. We got FPO, follow-on offering of 25 crore immediately before COVID. Look at the business. It was maybe listed in 2017 when the turnover was, in fact, this is March 17 number. So when we listed, the turnover was not even 50 crores. And today the turnover is more than 200 crore in 2 years time. And of course, then the, attendant PAT or EBITDA grown in that size. So this is what capital can do. So the business has grown visibility. Probably they would have got a lot of orders. It's a wire cable company. And because of listing platform, they would have got, significant benefit in business, etc., etc. So that kind of, and there are enormous, number of case studies available in terms of business growth. Price can go up and down, of course, because it's more of a market function, demand supply of shares. I mean, we must not immediately correlate what's the price today, what was the FPO price, or what was the IPO price. For example, all I can say is that the valuation of company has grown from 20 to 250 or 300 crore in 2 years time. And there is also investment of at FPO. So it's not just valuation on let's say on screen. The people have endorsed that valuation even by, let's say, subscribing at FPO level at that valuation, and business has also grown from, let's say, 50 to 200 crore, and of course going forward probably it will grow as it goes. So I think of course, there's another case study, but we can skip and we'll circulate this. So there is a significant, opportunity of raising capital, particularly in today's context, where, let's say, the funding is becoming more and more scarce, whether it is debt or otherwise. NBFCs are also getting very, very cautious. So in that context, I think equity is coming to the rescue. And fortunately, we have, the public market and various other private, forms of raising capital. And I believe that working closely with professional friends over last 6 years, in particular at Pantomath, I think there's a significant role which is being played by professional fraternity. And I think together we can make Kolkata an industrial hub, a city which perhaps the aim should be that every second company should get capital, not because it is our profession. We may be involved or may not be involved as advisors, but the whole idea is that external capital endorses the business model, gives that strength and sustainability to the business model, and business can grow sustainably, leaps and bounds. And there are enough number of examples even in Kolkata, where a particular company in, let's say, food segment has got capital and it has kind of become the national story. Similar will be the case in even other segments. So I think these are just some of the views where I thought I'll present. Happy to take any questions, and happy to discuss and learn.
Thank you, Mahavir. Thank you for the wonderful session. Audience, if you've got any questions, please raise your hand and I will unmute you so that you can ask your questions.
Hello, Rahul.
Rahul.
There's one question in the chat box. It can be taken.
Which one, please?
At the time of Rachnaji was delivering, at that time, one question was raised.
Yeah, so Rachnaji and Mahavirji, I think both of you can answer this, or rather anyone, up to you, sir. Ranjan Burman has got this question that if you can kindly repeat the main conditions for the entity to get listed.
Eligibility criteria basically.
Correct, correct.
You would like to take up, madam? आप म्यूट पे हो.
Ma'am, you are now the co-host. Now you can unmute yourself. Yes, ma'am.
So, the eligibility criteria stipulated, SEBI has stipulated only one condition, that any company with a paid-up capital of up to 10 crores can list themselves on the SME platform, and between 10 to 25 crores, they have an option to list either on the main board or on the SME board. So in a nutshell, any company with a paid-up capital of up to 25 crores is eligible to list on the SME platform. That's the only criteria that SEBI has specified. NSE has added several more hygiene checks, one about their track record. So a company should have a track record of 3 years. And out of the 3 years, they should have profitability in the last 2 years. So that's the criteria that NSE has added.
Ma'am, I think that answers the question for Ranjan ji.
A query related to this, Rolf.
Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Ma'am, last 3 years track record, that has to be in a company, or say the company was earlier, say a partnership firm or something like that, and then converted into company a year before. So that will do, or that has to be in a company, private limited or limited company per se?
It need not necessarily be a private limited company or a public limited company. The issuer could either be a sole proprietor or a partnership. The track record, sorry, the track record of the promoter or the proprietor would be given benefit of. Not necessarily it has to be a incorporated company for last 3 years.
Thank you, ma'am.
Sir, I have one question. Either Mahavir ji can take it or Rachna ji. Up to you, sir or ma'am. Going back to the earlier question which was asked by, I think Deepak ji had asked that question earlier. Sir, what are the avenues for professionals pre and post listing, specifically to the listing process, pre and post? I understand there are certain opportunities like valuation and all, but what other opportunities are there for us to get associated with the MSME?
So I think the whole genesis of public listing, of course, Rachna ji can add her views, is disclosure based regime, and there is a lot of diligence which is involved in the listing process. So many a times, good professionals who are working with companies, they kind of undertake a voluntary due diligence at those companies. So that becomes a great area of support and value addition, that even before let's say merchant bankers get engaged, there's a good amount of diligence that has been done. Second is, as we discussed, about the corporate structure itself. So, and the question which you asked about the, let's say, the partnership or proprietorship, so it actually starts from there. So if a company is into partnership firm, then definitely before it is taken to public, it has to be converted into public limited company. It has to have that governance, framework in terms of committee formations, in terms of dependent directors, in terms of or internal, control and audit framework. So these are some of the areas which are, squarely falling in professionals, role. And then of course all the document preparation of listing application to stock exchange. So there's a lot of documentation at each and every stage of listing, both at pre-IPO and also post-IPO compliances. There are certain certifications which are required from practitioners on various counts. I think we have not less than 40-50 certifications for the entire process. It's a quite engaged work along with the company, the professional friends and investment bankers and the stock exchange. So it's quite deep role, both at pre-IPO level, during IPO, and even at post-IPO level. And of course, once company is listed, then there are, let's say, interim financial reporting, limited review, corporate governance certifications, and all those compliances, which in any case, any listed company will have. So those are also to be taken care of by practitioners.
Thank you, Mahavir ji. Ma'am, anything to add over and above what Saraj just said?
I think he's covered it up totally.
Thank you. Deepak ji has raised his hand again. Deepak ji, I'm unmuting you, but please ask one and very small question so that, and then I've got some more questions which have come in the chat, so I would want to ask them as well.
Rahulji, generally what happens in the case of listed company, they go for big four audit firms like that.
Exactly.
So what, see, I am a sole proprietor accountant with 20 years of experience. They are not coming to us. Now what should I do so that they will not come to me, no? They will go to the big four for the listed companies.
Deepak ji, one
आपके
suggestion
जो
from my
भी
end.
क्लाइंट कंपनीज है ना सर, आप हमको रेफर करिए, हम
मैं
उनको
actually
बोलेंगे
वही बोलने
कि
वाला
आपको
था।
ऑडिटर बनाना है उनको।
मैं वही बोलने वाला था दीपक जी, one before I will hand over to Mahavir ji, let's try and have partnerships with merchant one bankers like Mahavir ji, who's of course from our fraternity only. You know, he's a CS from Calcutta and a Zaverian as well. So I think what we can do is we can show our clients that, boss, anyways, PwC again is also not a merchant banker, right? So we tie up with people like them, and then they will help us position ourselves. Very important that we as professionals are able to position ourselves that, boss, we can handle the listing process. B, we can also show them that we have got people like Mahavir ji backing, working for us. So I think that will help us in branding ourselves. The rest, Mahavir ji, Rachna ji.
Yeah, Deepak ji, I think we have seen, you know, many companies even on main board which may not necessarily have big four. So sometimes large companies, again, large is a very relative term. Don't misunderstand me. But sometimes any pre-IPO or private equity investors come in for companies of maybe $1 billion valuation and above. They do have requirement because they have their international funds. So they will need common, auditors, so on and so forth. But I think there's a huge amount of, companies in numbers and volume available. I mean, these 530 plus companies which have got listed on SME stock exchanges, probably only maybe 8-10 of them will have big four auditors. So there's good amount of, companies which have non-big four auditors. Even in main board, there are companies like, let's say, we listed Astron Paper, for example, on main board. I mean, they do not have, for example, big four. So sometimes, yes, I mean, people insist for a big four, but number one, there is no regulatory requirement, needless to say, like that. And there are huge number of companies which are happy with, non-big four auditors.
Thank you. I hope that answers you, Deepak ji.
Even to see Reliance Industries, when I was with Reliance Industries, I think Chaturvedi and Sav was their auditor, continues to be their auditor even now, of company of that size and scale. I mean, so auditor continues. So they may have joint auditors, 2-3 auditors because of the size and scale, but the auditor continues. So it's all about trust and confidence and about
now we are able to position ourselves as professionals.
Yeah.
Any more queries from the audience? No, I think we can wrap it up here. There is one more question which is there.
Rahul.
Yes, Bhaiya. Anil Bhaiya. Anil Bhaiya. No. Sir, I have got one more question. Sir, apart from listing, if you could just help us understand how can a merchant banker, what other association opportunities or work opportunities are there for us professionals when we tie up with merchant bankers? apart from just the listing process that we discussed today?
So there are various, valuations which require, merchant banking or, certifications. So we have association with a lot of professional friends. So we don't do registered valuation. So anything which has to be done by practitioners, we don't do. So there is no conflict with the, and it works both ways. So we are not in, let's say, debt raising, for example, project finance, we are not there. So a lot of times our client base needs, project finance. So project finance can be handled by our professional, associates, and equity can be handled by us. Valuation, if any registered valuer is required, probably you can do the registered valuers for even our clients. And we can do the merchant banking valuation, whether for ESOP or whether for preferential allotment, of course, need registered valuers report. But let's say for FEMA valuation or investment valuations, wherever, or even in fairness opinion in mergers, for example. So wherever those kind of valuations are required to be given by merchant bankers, we can help. So there are a lot of areas, where perhaps even, so we have met more than 4,000 businesses in last 6 years, and that has become a huge database of, serving those, captive kind of, client base. And not everything is done by us. So we take help of a lot of professional friends. So it works completely both ways. Sometimes when we approach professionals, they feel that we are only after their client. It's not like that. It's a very healthy association. We all are part of ecosystem. So you raise debts for our client, that's absolutely fine. So there are a lot of complementing areas like that.
Okay, thank you, Mahavirji.
Even
Anil Bhaiya, Anil Saraogi Bhaiya.
Rahulji,
So those
Yes.
areas, we are not in audit and control. So a lot of times when our companies go for fundraise or for, let's say, IPOs, or even, let's say, prepare for some kind of such activity, we encourage them to have proper internal audit. We encourage them to have independent directors. So some of you who are okay becoming independent directors can also play that role. Even if, let's say, you don't want to become a director on the board, you can be an advisor to the board or advisor to the company. So there are a lot of areas, where we take help of professionals in day-to-day operations, corporate governance, compliances, and debt raising for those companies.
Vishnu, please. Go ahead, please, Vishnu.
Rahul, I have one question. Rahul.
Vishnu, please go ahead. Ask your question. We can hear you. Yes.
The question may be dealt by Rachna ji or Mahavir, anyone. Actually, we are engaged with some of the listed company, and we are doing all the LODR activity, all the LODR compliances and other way also. The question is that whether is all the LODR compliance is required for the MSME also in Toto, with a certain relaxation.
So there are, the overall framework remains the same. I mean, all the LODR and corporate governance requirements are same, but certain compliances which involves cost and which involves administration. For example, quarterly results,
Review.
publication of annual reports in physical form, e-voting facility. So these are relaxed by, SEBI and exchanges. So.
Okay.
And those relaxations are very well defined. Other than those exclusions, entire LODR applies.
Okay.
Madam, you would like to add on this? Yeah.
So basically, I would say anything to do with the structure, organization structure of the company, the corporate governance norms, is no relaxation there, because at the end of the day, you are a public limited company who has tapped public markets, who has tapped the public funds. So there are no dispensations given out there. But with respect to disclosures, here, the periodicity has been reduced so that, you don't have to get into quarterly submissions, but there's a yearly submission requirement. So I think the only dispensation is respect to the frequency of the compliance rather than, the dispensation of the compliance.
Frequency increased. Okay. Thank you.
Anil Saraogi Bhaiya, are you here? Yes, Bhaiya, please, over to you.
Thank you, Rachna ji and Mahavir ji. Both of you have amply explained the intricacy of the alternate sources of funding primarily through SME platform of the NSE in such a short duration of time allotted to both of you. I fully understand and believe that each one of us attending this webinar has benefited a lot from your deliberation. We look forward to hear from both of you in near future once again and enrich our professional knowledge. Now I would request Vishnu, co-chairman of the webinar committee, to give a formal vote of thanks to both the speakers.
Before offering the formal vote of thanks, I have two announcements to make before the audiences. First is that on the 1st July, which is the CA Foundation Day, we are trying to have all the CCM members of the ERC and the RCM on the board for discussion over the CA profession and expectation from the members to the institute. And second, we are trying to have a session on CA entrepreneurs in various startup and the SMEs who are leader in their online, so that we can be more enthusiastically serve them, and we can also learn something from them, how we can elaborate ourselves, our scope of work. With these two announcements, I now thanks Rachna Dusari ji and my good friend Mahavir ji, whom I met after I think 15 years. And suddenly when I saw his name, I was very much happy that thank you Rahul that he brought my friend to me memory. Undoubtedly, with the guidance which Rachna ji gave to us, Mahavir which explained very well. And of course, we have a lot of opportunities. I am dealing with the stock exchanges. I am also attached with the listed company and several compliances there. And of course, after the announcement of the Nitin Gadkari, I have some friends in Mumbai. They are saying that we are looking at very good opportunity in SME sectors, and we professionals really require there. So as a chartered accountant, as a company secretary, we are very much having good opportunity for them, and I am very much and Mahavir might be we are thinking for the second programs with a larger scope, because today is weekdays, so we got little bit less audience. Of course, we will try to have this same on the Saturday or Sunday, the larger audience. With this kind words,
any inputs we can provide, it will be our pleasure. And maybe small suggestion, maybe next time we can also invite a couple of entrepreneurs who have raised funds on Emerge platform, so that
yes.
we'll also give, let's say, a kind of case study or live case study, and we can facilitate that. That's not.
Yeah. And some questions which came from the audience is that what are the specific opportunity which we professionals can provide? If we can tick out small things, this is the opportunity which we can do, this opportunity we can do, it will really help to understand, because a lot of people, a lot of chartered accountants are not interested in doing the compliances work because they are related to audit or taxation. But this new opportunity must be availed by them. I can see it. It is very good opportunity. And thank you, Mahavir, and thank you, Rachna ji, for coming up and helping us to and showing the new opportunity to all of us. With these warm words, I welcome you again, once again, and thank you very much. Thank you to our audience also who came and be interacted with our speakers, and to all my past president and all the coordinators who came here for joining the program. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.